I once heard this question asked to me, but I simply changed it just a bit. And this question, I take it very seriously, and I ask myself this often. And the question is, do you control the dreaming, or does the dreaming control you? And by dreaming, I mean, if I had to give it context, I don't mean visualization. I mean all internal actions that you take on the inside, all internal movement. Does that control you, or are you in control of it? Are you directing it? I can ask people all day long what type of ice creams they'll get. If I asked 100 people, I would get 100 different ice creams. But if I ask them, well, what do you like to imagine? At times, there's just a blank that's drawn. And I suggest you find what you love to imagine. Just the same way what type of ice cream you love. What do you love to think about? And there's no way around it. We are always dreaming all the time. You know, there are certain things I like to draw and certain things I like to paint, but there's also certain things I like to imagine. And we must really ask ourselves that question, is the imagining controlling me? And at times you'll find that it is. And the point of what I'm getting at is that there's going to be times where you forget this law, you'll forget to imagine, you'll forget to utilize this instrument, this tool at your disposal. You'll go through life and a month or two go by and you realize you didn't really imagine the things you wanted to imagine. And Neville has said that we can donate money to somebody, or I can act and imagine them gainfully employed, or them being gainful in their life. And he said, so he equates acting with imagining. So he doesn't equate acting with donating. He equates action with imagining. And so how can I really help out somebody? Neville said that you should act, and acting is to imagine. And when you forget this law and you forget that things are within you, and you try to seek it outwardly and you can't seem to find it, for me, I have a phrase that I use, and I simply remember the words "in here." In here is what I'm seeking. It'll be found in here, inside of myself. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter the nature of the desire. I'll find it inside of myself. And when I actually give it to myself, I will be satisfied. And that's the difference between sin and righteousness. And sin is to miss your mark internally. It's to not really imagine what you wanted to imagine, not really believing in it. We have to see ourselves as the archers of life, and we have certain bullseyes we want to hit. And nobody is satisfied when they miss. Nobody's satisfied when they miss. We only get satisfaction when we actually hit our mark. So when we go inside ourselves, when we go internally, we must hit our marks. And don't be ashamed of your mark. Whatever the mark is, hit it until it satisfies you. You'll know when you're satisfied. That means you hit your mark. You actually imagined. You did it. Well, you did exactly what you wanted to do. You heard the exact words you wanted to hear. You dropped and let go of your nervousness and anxiety, and you actually felt the fulfillment. You allowed yourself to be entertained enough to crowd all other ideas out of your mind, and you actually felt its fulfillment. That's the difference between success and failure within us. And I say that because that's where these things are found, all within us. And so the desire and the fulfillment are both found in me. Now, I can remain in one if I wish. I can imagine one if I wish. But if I'm imagining from desire, I would have to assume that I'm being controlled by my imagining. If I can't stop imagining, but if I don't have my own input, my own hand on it, and I'm simply thinking thoughts that I don't love, I'm thinking thoughts not truly worth thinking. I'm saying words that aren't worth really speaking. I'm seeing images that aren't worth looking at. Then I have to gain control again. And the way I do that is by realizing that what I'm also seeking is within me. But once I see that it's all within me, I can move. It's believing that it's outside of me where I get stuck, where I can't seem to find the freedom of this internal bondage that I'm in. And it doesn't matter the internal bondage. It truly doesn't matter. What matters is that you assume that you're free. You assume and believe that you already are free. It's not about figuring anything out. It's about assuming. Neville called it the law of assumption, and I love that word. It's not about whether or not I know it, or I have all the information, or I know the timing, and who's going to speak to who, and how this will unfold. I don't know those things. I'm not told to know those things. I'm told to assume it. I assume that I'm freed. That's what I want to think about. I want to think about the assumptions that imply the fulfillment of my being. And that's the end goal. The end goal is always being. So when I've made a video called Go to the End. The end is being. It's not about gaining some type of object. It's about being the one who has it. Being that way. And that's when you hit your mark. When you actually have the possession of the thing that you want, you have it. And so I invite you, and as Neville invited you, to actually assume that you are in possession of the things that you want. And the things that you want, you don't have to go outside and ask anyone for it. You don't need some authority outside of you to give you the okay. To imagine something. You truly are in charge of your own thinking. Now, you can think thoughts given to you by certain systems in the world, or you can create your own system, as Blake has said. And I would advise for you to create your own system, one in which that enriches you, where you think thoughts worth thinking, speaking words worth saying, seeing images that you truly love to look upon. And you start speaking from fulfillments within you. And I was speaking with a friend recently about this, and we both truly respect how much Neville truly worked on his imagination. I really respect how much time he put into it. And I remember I got so inspired when I read Out of This World, and he said he sat for about 2 hours, always just imagining himself to be different, seeing if he could do it. And that really inspired me, because that's truly all it is. Can we do it? Let me just test to see if I can imagine what I want. Even though I might be in a certain position I dislike, even then, can I test this and see if I can imagine? Can I have control of my imagining again? The times that I have forgotten this law, I injured myself. I imagined and spoke and saw things I really wish I didn't. And I spent time focusing on things that truly didn't give me what I wanted on the inside. And the most natural thing for people to do is to blame some external force for why my dreaming is the way it is. But not in this case. We can't do that. We have to take responsibility for the things I do inside, for how I'm acting. What am I truly doing? If you could see that you're doing something on the inside, you would become curious as to what you're doing. You might not know why you're doing what you're doing, but at least you know you're doing something. If you know you're doing something, you can change it. But if you don't think your imagining matters, because you don't see the immediate effects of it, that the thoughts you think throughout your day and the words you're saying don't have any effect because they just don't materialize instantly, then you truly are mistaken. For everything inside of you is being sown. You will reap a harvest of the things we've spoken. And now this harvest is not, and it's our fruits of what we've labored after on the inside, what we have imagined. And so if you forget this law, if you forget to imagine lovely things, if you forget to imagine fulfillments, and you find yourself imagining disasters or imagining things that you don't want, remind yourself that the freedom from this type of dreaming is also within you. It's simply a change in direction. You don't need to go outside of oneself to change one's type of imagining, to change oneself. And so I just want to make a short video on the forgetting and the remembering of this type of information, the application and the lack thereof. To remember that even if you do have a setback in the sense that you weren't imagining what you wanted, or you're simply coasting, to not be concerned, but to simply just go right back into it as if you really want to go into it as if you didn't skip a beat. You want to go right back into imagining your fulfillments. There's no time to waste to shame oneself as to why they were imagining what they were. it's best to just start doing the things you want to do, to start imagining the way you want to imagine. There's no time to waste because we're always doing something on the inside. So you might as well start doing what you want. Even you might have found yourself doing what you don't want to do, but simply start doing what you want to do. You don't have to do anything other than simply start doing what you want to do. And if you enjoyed this type of talk and this type of conversation, I do offer one-on-ones, and it feels very wonderful to know that these have helped people in their lives, that they've given the power back to oneself, that they saw that they were the operant power. They were operating this thing called imagination, that they were the power that made this thing spin, made this thing run. Once they see it that way, they can direct it and control it again. And so I just want to ask the question one more time. Are you in control of your imagining, or does your imagining control you? And really be honest about it. So I just wanted to make this video for it to be a reminder that even if you forget to use the law, when you do remember, just simply jump right back into it. Jump right back into it. Imagine it all. Imagine and believe the exact same way you were before you forgot. Do it right the exact same way again. Don't skip a beat. The only time we have is now to do something on the inside because we're always doing something. So there's really no other time to wait. So I hope you enjoyed this talk. Thank you.